The story begins on the sun-soaked shores of a mysterious island, with a woman awakening to find herself all alone with no knowledge of how she got there. It will be revealed a little later that her name is Chase. For now, she clutches the shell she woke up with and blows into it. As the camera pans out and shows the island from above, it is revealed that there are several other people lying unconscious on the shore. Almost immediately after blowing her shell, she sees a red-haired woman a few meters away, approaching her. She runs to the woman and notices that she is wearing exactly the same clothes as her, olive green cargo trousers with a white buttoned shirt. The two women begin conversing with each other, but the redhead seems confrontational from the get-go. However, she can't remember who she is either. But just as Chase woke up with a shell nearby her, the redhead woke up with a knife. Unsheathing it, she threatens Chase, making it clear that she does not trust anyone so readily. Chase tries to de-escalate the situation by slowly lowering her shell and asking the redhead to do similarly with her weapon. However, when the redhead refuses, Chase disarms her with surprising agility. Just as the redhead begins to question Chase's agility, a black is seen running towards them. The redhead quickly throws the sheath of the knife towards Chase so as not to be seen with a weapon. Thankfully, Chase hides the knife behind her back just as the black man arrives. He tells them both that there are other people on the other side of the beach. As it turns out, there are 10 stranded people on the island, and all of them are wearing identical shirts and trousers. In the following scene, all of them begin to gather wood and coconuts except the redhead, who sulks under a tree. They then sit down and start conversing with one another. Soon afterwards, the redhead finds out that the inside of their shirt's collar contains a tag with their names on it. The redhead is KC, and the man who approached the girls earlier is Cooper. The other 3 women are called Taylor, Hayden, and Blair, while the 4 other men are called Moses, Donovan, Mason, and Brody. However, as the conversation goes on, KC and Chase continue to bicker with each other. KC also tries to get close to Brody, which irks Chase. After a while, Chase announces that she wants to have a look around the island to gather information of where they are. Several others refuse, but Brody and Donovan agree to go with her. A few minutes later, Chase, Brody, and Donovan find several other artifacts like a compass, a small first aid box, and a small axe buried at the spot where each of the members woke up. Chase buckles the knife that KC was holding to her belt while Brody packs everything else in his shirt. He then suggests they find fresh water and shelter, and Chase agrees. However, Donovan decides to return to the others. Back at the camp, Cooper, Moses, Taylor, and Blair play a game while KC stays close by but on her own. Cooper asks the others to tell them the first thing that pops into their head when he says random words. Although KC doesn't join the game, but when Cooper says mother, she curiously whispers children to herself. This subconscious motherly instinct may indicate why she is so withdrawn and untrusting of others at the moment. On the other hand, Hayden starts a conversation with Mason, who is trying to ignite a fire through a chipped piece of bottle glass. Curiously, Hayden describes other members as basic people who are just looking to band together through sexual preference. On top of that, she describes herself as an intellectual who judges people silently. A bewildered Mason watches on as she grabs another shard of glass and quickly ignites a fire, something that he couldn't achieve. After a while, Cooper and Moses begin to draw a large help sign on the beach while Taylor lounges on the shore. It is obvious that Taylor doesn't like getting her hands dirty by working like the others. However, she notices something buried near her and digs it out of the sand. It is a book titled The Mysterious Island. Unfortunately, Taylor barely looks at the book and tosses it away. KC is still sitting alone nearby, and her mood further deteriorates when Donovan arrives back alone. He tells her that Brody and Chase must be busy flirting with each other somewhere on the island. Although she does not show it outright, KC is clearly bothered by this budding romance between Chase and Brody. However, Donovan then urges Taylor to join him for a swim in the sea, and soon enough everyone except KC, Hayden, and Moses join them. Moses points out that he is not sure if he can swim and would like to stay back at the shore. Unbeknownst to anyone, the book that Taylor earlier found washes up in the ocean. In another corner of the island, Chase and Brody venture into the jungle. They soon come across a waterfall and several fruit trees which sort out 2 of their most basic needs. However, Brody urges her not to share this information with the others, but Chase sounds reluctant to the idea. The 2 start flirting and soon kiss each other. But soon afterwards, Chase stops Brody, flirtatiously telling him that a little kiss is enough for a day. To her horror, Brody doesn't stop. First, he tries to pull her towards himself, and when she resists, he pushes her to the ground, forcing himself on her. After a bit of struggle, Chase manages to wriggle out of his control. She then brandishes the knife she took from KC, and eventually, Brody stops. While he tries to justify his action as simply playing around, Chase runs away. Back at the camp, the other members are having a good time, swimming in the sea. But soon afterwards, a shark suddenly appears near them, and in their panic, the group splits into two. Blair, Mason, and Donovan get caught in a high tide and are dragged further into the sea. A previously reluctant Moses runs to the rescue and jumps into the sea without hesitation. However, it is too late as the shark attacks and kills Donovan in a blink. Moses manages to drag a panicked Taylor and Mason to the shore. A little while later, Brody manages to find his way back to the group. Relieved not to see Chase with the others, he excitedly shows them the stuff he, Chase, and Donovan found. He is soon informed that Donovan was killed in a shark attack. However, before he can say anything in response, KC stands up and starts her rant against Chase. She points out that Chase suspiciously knows exactly where all the goods are and announces that there is something shady with her. This talk of Chase gets Brody nervous, and he tries to change the topic by urging everyone to move further down the beach. There are a bunch of rocks nearby that would shield them from the wind. Reluctantly, everyone else follows him to the new spot. Brody then starts to command everyone and assigns them different jobs. After a while, Chase comes back with a few bananas and mangoes and gives it to everyone. But she then grabs a nearby coconut, smacks Brody down, and begins attacking him. Cooper and Mason hold her back and she yells that Brody attacked her. She also tells them about the freshwater waterfall that they found, something that Brody hadn't told anyone. However, he plays down the incident and then tries to paint Chase as the crazy one. He tries to antagonize everyone else against her, much to KC's pleasure. However, when Chase does not back down, he changes the topic to Donovan's death and tells her to focus on more important things. Enraged, Chase tells everyone to leave her alone and walks a few meters away to cool herself down. That night, Chase falls asleep on a rock nearby where the rest of the group sleep. However, she has a nightmare in which she is holding a gun, pointed at someone who begs her to stop. On the floor is a pool of blood. As she awakens, breathing heavily, she grabs an axe and heads off down the beach. Some way down, she finds Donovan washed up on shore, with his leg bitten. As she blows the horn, the rest of the cohorts arrive and hoist him up, hurrying across the beach with him. Following this, Chase sits alone wondering what is happening around her. But soon she is joined by Brody, who tells her he wants to apologize for his actions earlier. However, his apology is only half sincere, as he still maintains that what he did was not a big deal. Before leaving, he tells Chase that the rest of the members are having a meeting soon. After the day's events, all of them gather together and discuss their future plans. Donovan is gravely injured but alive. Brody suggests moving inland so that they can be near fresh water and shelter to protect them from the environment. It is clear that he does not believe they will be rescued. On the other hand, Cooper argues against moving inland. He suggests they take turns to look after Donovan and keep the fire going while others search for resources. As the group discusses their options, Chase tells them all she wants to leave the island completely, but her point is quickly interrupted by Brody and KC, who ask her how she knows they can get off the island. It is then that Chase reveals that earlier that day Mason and Hayden were doing something weird on the shore. She then invites the duo to speak and Mason stands up to explain their theory. He reveals that there are precisely 39 steps between the spots where each of them woke up. It is also quite obvious that both Hayden and Mason are really good with analytics. Following this, all the members except the injured Donovan follow Mason's lead down the shore. His calculations are precise, and the group ends up at the other end of the beach where there is a mysterious sign. The sign reads, "Make your way back," and Chase thinks it is a clue for them to find a way out of the island. But her points are almost unanimously rejected by everyone. The group discusses the meaning of the sign. With the exception of Chase, the group departs back to Donovan at camp. In frustration, Chase throws the conch shell, which then breaks. She does not realize it, but the broken shell reveals a stamp which reads "Property of Island." Also, contained in the broken shell is a blinking electronic device with a beeping light. The following morning, Chase wakes up alone near the sign while others have gone back. When she wakes up, she is greeted by a surprising sight, an inflatable raft floating out on the sea. Excited and panicked, she begins opening her shirt and shoes. Unfortunately, she steps on a broken shard of glass, which cuts the sole of her leg. However, she still hurriedly gets into the water and swims towards the raft. But the trail of blood coming out of her leg attracts a shark towards her. Just as the shark is about to attack her, she manages to pull herself into the raft. On the raft, she finds 2 bags of first aid kits, a paddle, and a brown bag with a few bullets in it. Following this, she paddles the raft to the shore and then drags it to land. There she decides to hide it behind the bushes and not inform anyone for the moment. As she heads back to the Como, she meets Brody making a fire. She gives him a cold shoulder before he and KC leave to gather food and supplies towards the waterfall. When the two are gone, Chase looks for a moment until she is completely alone. Then she hides the 2 suitcases in a small hole. One of the suitcases contains a lot of life-saving medicine, like morphine, that Chase takes. The other one has a smaller case inside which does not open. Nonetheless, Chase hides both the suitcases and goes to the others. Along the way, she meets Cooper, who shares his hatred for Brody. Just like Chase, Cooper also thinks that Brody's main aim is to gain power and not to get off the island. However, Cooper also quickly notices the bag that Chase is hiding. With no option left, she shows him some of the weird things in it, like a pack of chewing gum with the number 39 written on it, and postal stamps. The two come to a conclusion that they should not share this with anyone currently. He then heads off with Mason for their morning hunt. In the meantime, KC starts to flirt with Brody when the two are deep in the jungle. She asks what happened between him and Chase the other day, but Brody simply deflects the question. However, she kisses him and the two get intimate. Later that afternoon, the group notices a storm headed towards their island. Brody once more brings up moving inland with the group, but Cooper quickly disagrees with him. The situation escalates and the two square up. This time, Cooper punches him in the jaw, leading to a fight. Eventually, Brody grabs Chase and snatches the knife away from her. The group turn on Brody, seeing the sort of person he is, and it's here we see his lust for power. As a storm hits, the group scramble for cover, split up and get separated in the ensuing chaos. Cooper alone stays under a tree while Brody goes back to the waterfall and tries to keep a fire going. Meanwhile, Chase leads the rest of the group to the raft and they shelter in. Cooper eventually finds Chase hiding in the inflatable raft and scrambles inside for cover. As the storm passes, she heads back to the site of the sign and finds a weird item on the ground. Just for a moment, the camera shows property of land on the side of the shell Chase has been blowing into as she rushes off down the island. After a tense encounter with Brody, she heads back to the cases with the item in her hand, which appears to be a key of some sort. Realizing that the lock on the case may well have something to do with numbers, she works her way through a series of equations before managing to open the locked case. Inside, she finds a revolver coupled with the bullets she found on the raft. She then loads the gun up and heads back to the group. After sharpening her blade, Cooper heads off for a hike with Chase through the tropics of the island, miles away from the group. Out in the wilderness, they come across a large abandoned building which appears to be a hotel, with running water coming from a fountain. They hurry back to the group in record time and tell them about the beds and what they've found. Unfortunately, Chase's knack for finding out things and her antagonistic behavior lands her in the bad books with everyone else. They see her as a bad influence and tell her to leave. Alone, she sleeps in the raft out in the woods while continuing to have nightmares about her room and blood dripping on the floor. Grabbing her from the raft in the morning, the group drag her to the beach where they find Brody stabbed in the stomach with her knife. As she blacks out, she awakens inside a strange, futuristic room lying on a bed. In the following scene, Chase awakens to a nurse standing over her. Panicking, she mentions the island but is met with a blank expression before she blacks out once more. She awakens a little bit later to find a physician, Dr. Conrad, standing over her. He tells her the paralysis she's experiencing is really just a magnetic field to help keep the prison population under wraps. After freeing her from her restraints, he rushes out of the room and leaves her stuck in the room. Guards arrive with guns soon after and tell her to follow them. She is then brought before someone named Warden Wells. He tells her about the new experiments they've been doing. She asks why she's in prison, but he turns the questions around to the island itself. It turns out she wasn't really there, and the island was all just a simulation. Leaving her to stew over his words, she fights off two guards effortlessly before knocking one of them into the chair she awoke in. Charging through the corridors, she fights past numerous guards, dodging bullets as she goes, before eventually being knocked out and thrown into a holding cell underground. After being given some time to cool off, she's taken to a room full of high-ranking officials and jurors, along with the warden, and told more about the island. It's a battle of nature versus nurture, and the whole concept is around whether you can change a person's moral compass and innate desires. As she sits, listening to them talk, the group discusses whether they should allow her back into the simulation. The warden hears enough and takes Chase outside and discusses matters with her alone. She asks him about Brody and he tells her that when you do something bad on the island, it pays you back. Whatever happened, the Brody inside and outside the simulation is dead. The warden tells her he will be keeping his eye on her if she goes back inside, especially given how peculiar she's been reacting to the game. The board comes to an agreement and decides she should be put back in the simulation. As the guards grab her and take her away, the warden takes her outside and antagonizes her again, this time with a noose around her neck. Despite a valiant effort to fight them off, Chase is eventually electrocuted with tasers and knocked out. Bloodied and bruised, after a cryptic talk with another physician, Dr. Wiss, who talks to her about the island. She manages to escape capture. She hurries across to another area of the facility where she finds a control center full of scientists and guards. The 9 other islanders are floating in tanks while dressed in a strange cocoon-like suit. It's here the warden finds her again, sneering and informing her that none of them have a chance in the game if he has anything to say about it. As he tells the guards to light her up, the game begins again. In the following scene, Chase returns to the beach, tied up while the group discusses what to do about her following Brody's murder. Still tied up, she tells the others what she experienced with the warden, but no one believes her. She warns them it's going to get worse, leading Casey to ask her if she's got any proof. Unfortunately, it does get worse quite quickly too, as Hayden has a vision about stabbing a man in a car numerous times, crossing him off a kill list. This prompts the group to turn on Chase, wrestling her to the ground and searching for her as 2 strangers arrive on the island. The group scramble back to their feet while Chase believes these 2 have been sent by the warden to antagonize and manipulate them. As it happens, the 2 newcomers are called Bonnie and Clyde, and they begin weaving their web of deceit immediately. They tell the group about the cases and the gun Chase has been hiding from them. Clyde then turns around and stabs Hayden in the stomach, telling them it's just the island serving justice, as she was the one who stabbed Brody. As Hayden doubles over, spewing blood from her mouth, Clyde tells them they all signed waivers to agree to this experiment, as the truth is finally revealed. Grabbing the gun from the case, Chase hurries away while Bonnie and Clyde tell them things are starting to heat up. They continue, telling the group their lack of ambition may come back to cost them, as they should have been searching around the island in the first few days. They go on to threaten them, telling them they'll be watching the whole time, and that they should head for the village on the other side of the island. As they walk off into the distance, the rest of the group discuss what to do next while burying the now dead Hayden and Brody. In the final scene, with the group split over what to do, Casey, Cooper and Moses head off to the abandoned village where they find a group of huts. As Bonnie and Clyde smile from afar and mutter "let the games begin," the various cohorts begin to have visions of their past life. As cracks begin to form in the group, Chase heads back to the abandoned hotel and begins looking around. Reminding herself this is all a simulation, she finds a bloody woman asking for help in one of the rooms, a woman who happens to be her mother. As she keeps looking, Chase opens a door and looks on in shock over what she's found. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave 1,000 likes or 100 comments if you'd like us to continue part 2. Thank you.